At some point in time during your career, you're going to make a mistake and you're going to have to get counseled by a supervisor. And this goes for all of you, including me. And this happened 2 days ago. I'm going to share with you guys a quick story about 5 tips on how to properly handle being counseled by your supervisor. Join me for today's debrief.
Yeah. Holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen. Bringing nothing but heat, leave you hanging like clothespins. He's a beast when he goes in, ice cold frozen. The first round draft pick, #1 chosen.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, coming to you today from Cabela's. Came out here looking for a couple of items. I mean, if any of you guys have ever gone to Cabela's, you know it's just like an absolute wonderland of clothing and firearms and fishing and hunting gear. And I came out here wanting to get, a couple of shirts, and I ended up, like always, spending more money than I wanted to. But hey, that's why we work all this overtime, right? So that we can justify our egregious spending habits. So anyway, as always, if you're getting any benefit from the videos that we're uploading, please like, share, and subscribe. You can hit that little notification bell icon that looks like this. And keep in mind as you're watching these videos that the entire purpose of this channel is to help educate, motivate, train, and inform new and entry-level security guards so that we can have a better opportunity to share information, help to motivate these guards to be more passionate about what they do. If we can do that, and we can help #change that narrative around the security industry, we can all make more money, be more successful, and just be better guards all the way across the board. So I just came off of a 16.5-hour shift yesterday. I worked 7 back-to-back 16.5-hour shifts last week, and then I'm off today. Your boy actually has a day off. I'm going to hit the shooting range at Threat Dynamics, and then tomorrow through the rest of the week I have 16.5-hour doubles. But all that, let's get to the point of this video. Counseling, right? And counseling is that term for basically when you have to get talked to by your superior, your supervisor. And that happened to me the other day. So before we get to the counseling part, I'm going to give you guys the scenario. And this scenario, it bleeds into so much about what we talk about here, right? One of the things being post orders, another thing being your responsibilities as a security guard, and how a lot of these things kind of, they filter into gray areas. And if you're not careful, you can get yourself in trouble and potentially get yourself fired. So let's get right to the story. So the cop shows up. Cop's like, hey, what's going on? I get out, I tell her exactly what happened. Came out from the store, I work here, just getting off shift. This is what I smelled. I interacted with the people in the tent. Everything was copacetic. They're leaving. I came over to do a welfare check with these people. The woman was unresponsive. I contacted 911, blah, blah, blah. These people showed up, started filming me. So like, I'm just giving her, the rundown of everything. The cop gets out, talks to the group of Antifa, explains to them what a welfare check is, explains to them that I work at the location, de-escalates that situation, goes over, talks to the guy, explains to him what's going on, de-escalates that situation. At this point, everything is straight, right? Like, the Antifa people are gone, the people with the tent, for the most part, they're pretty much gone, and then this guy is on his way. So I'm thinking to myself, like, man, all of this, like, kind of went downhill, if you want to say that. It all kind of went downhill technically when I was off. Like, by the time that I had seen the issue outside, I had contacted my manager, who at this point in time was already at home, let him know what was going on. But my interaction with these people was off, right? But I'm on property, I'm in uniform, and the police showed up. So I'm like, I have to report this. Like, I have to, contact my supervisor, let him know what happened, contact my, my immediate supervisor at that location, let them know what happened. This happened on the property that I work for. Let them know what happened. Like, I don't want to ever be in a situation where, like, I'm hiding anything or I'm not informing my employers of anything. That's another thing, guys. Like, just always keep your integrity at the front of the situation, right? So contact everybody. I'm like, I handled this as best I felt like I could, and I thought that I did the right thing. So go to bed, no big deal, right? Next day, my supervisor reaches out to me and he's like talking about something else, but he's like, listen, I'm going to need to talk to you tomorrow about that situation that happened, last night. And immediately, like, my heart sank, because you guys, you don't understand, like, the respect and the reverence that I have for my immediate supervisor. Like, this man has changed my life in so many ways, and I do everything I can to always be like, a top-notch officer and like set the example for other officers. So having him at all seem like maybe he was disappointed or not okay with what happened, like, I felt sick to my stomach, right? So I reach out to him and we get on the phone, and he tells me, he's like, listen, your post orders are very, very clear. They're very clear. Like, whatever you see, you report it, and you are not to go above and beyond. Like, he explains to me all the situations where my engagement, how that could have gone wrong, right? Not only how it could have gone wrong, but like where I could be liable based on the fact that I'm in uniform, right? I'm on property, but I'm technically off. And so I'm acting as a private citizen at this point, but how that all rolls in to every single facet of what was going on, and clearly what's going on politically and in this city, like all the ways that I kind of put myself out there, to be in a bad situation. So that's the backstory. And now I want to give you guys my 5 points on how to be counseled, because listen, I have this YouTube channel. I come on here and I'm teaching, and I'm trying to do all of these things for our community. It's hard. It's hard as a man, as a grown man. It's hard to take criticism. And I see where so many people in this industry, it's hard for them to take criticism. People get, butt hurt and get upset. But these 5 points that I want to go over, they're very, very, very important, because this is the key to having not only longevity in this career, but also being able to become a better officer yourself and help people to become and develop better, to be better officers as they develop in their career. So the number one thing when being counseled by a superior or a supervisor, you have to listen. I know it's so easy to want to get your side of the story out. It's so easy to want to get your point across. And you just want to make sure that before the supervisor starts laying into you, that you get across to him what it was you were thinking, what it was you were doing, why you did it. Like, I get all of that, right? But once the situation has moved to the point where the supervisor needs to have a conversation with you, the best thing for you to do is just be quiet and listen. Listen. Let that supervisor explain to you why they're counseling you. Explain to you where they're coming from, because they're going to be very specific. They're going to tell you all of the liability issues, all of the things that you potentially violated policy-wise. They're going to give you literally everything that you need to know about why they're having this conversation with you. And it's important to your development that you allow that to happen. Don't interject. Don't say, yeah, but. Don't do anything but just listen to what they're saying, where they're coming from, and let them lay the groundwork for this counseling session, okay? The second thing that you want to do is ask for clarification, right? So when your supervisor is telling you all of the things that you did wrong, all of the ways that you violated or potentially violated policy, how you put yourself in a bad situation, your head's going to be spinning, right? And if you feel like you did the right thing, this is the hardest thing for me. If you feel like you're putting all this effort into being a better officer, you're going above and beyond, your coworkers and people that you just, who really don't give a shit, it's hard to take that corrective conversation, and you're going to hear a lot. But while you're hearing a lot of things, you might not necessarily be comprehending or really listening, because you're kind of like thinking to yourself, if you're like me, you're thinking of ways that you can have something to say that'll kind of get your ass out of trouble, right? After they're done, take a deep breath and ask for clarification. Listen, this is what I heard you say. This is what I'm hearing. is this what you mean? Like, is this what you want me to do in the future? Okay, if this is what I do in the future and this happens, am I going to get in trouble for that? Because this is how I see it. I felt like if I did X, Y, and Z and then A, B, C happened, I would also get in trouble. So I'm just asking for clarification. What exactly should I be getting from this conversation? What should I do differently in the future? And I just want you to be very open, honest, and transparent with me. What should I have done in this situation? Your supervisor should be able to lay out, hey, this is where you went wrong. This is what I want you to do in the future. This is the thing that I want you to think about. And to my supervisor's credit, that's exactly what he did. So aside from the first thing, which is just shutting up and listening, the second thing that you want to do is make sure that you get clarification on what was done incorrectly and what needs to be done differently in the future. Now, after asking for clarification, right, you want to ask for corrective action, right? And this, I think, is really important in dealing with an area where you might have made a mistake or you might have done something wrong or incorrectly, right? I think it's really easy for all of us to kind of pout and get to a point where we're frustrated or we're upset. Again, specifically if you think that you've done the right thing. But if you can listen, you can ask for clarification, and then you can take a second and say, okay, what's the corrective action? Like, what do you need me to do right now to fix this situation? Let your supervisor know that you're willing to do whatever it takes. Without getting into a specific, there's someone that I work with who had to deal with a legal issue. This legal issue came up from years ago in a different state, and it was threatening his ability to be able to perform his duties based on the company that he works for and based on the governing body within our state, right? And he asked me for advice. He goes, man, I'm stressed out. Like, I'm scared that I'm going to lose my job. Like, I really like what I'm doing. I like working here. I love the people that I work with. Man, what do I do in this situation? I said, go to your supervisor and say, I am willing to do whatever it takes to keep this job. Whatever it takes. Like, if I've got to, fly to this place and take care of this, if I've got to spend money and get an attorney, if I have to, restart this entire process and work from the ground up, I'm going to do it. Whatever it takes. You tell me what I need to do to make this situation better and make it to where you guys, trust that I can continue to do this job, and I will do it. There's nothing you're going to tell me, short of something illegal, that I'm not willing to do. Ask for that corrective action. Show your employer that your job means something to you and it means enough to you that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that you maintain that position. After asking for corrective action, number 4 is going to be to confirm to your employer or your supervisor that you understand why you guys had this conversation. I think that is so important. Confirming that you understand why you had this conversation, you understand why they're reaching out to you, and that you are hearing them loud and clear. The last thing that I said to the second to last thing that I said to my supervisor was, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It is received and it's copied, and I will make sure to do this moving forward. I think that is probably one of the biggest things that we have to do as men and as employees and as subordinates. We have to make sure that our supervisor understands that we are hearing what they're saying, we're hearing where they're coming from, that we understand it, and that it's going to be implemented moving forward. As a manager and as a supervisor, you don't want to leave a conversation and think to yourself like, man, I don't know if this guy gets it or not. Because if you feel that way, any slight mess up down the road, there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room. So you want to make sure that that's something that you're keeping in mind when you're dealing with this situation. Confirm to them, I know why you called me. I know why you reached out. I know why we're having this situation or this conversation. I understand it. Copy, got it. I'll make those changes and I'll do something different moving forward. Number 5 is going to sound a little crazy, but guys, listen, this is real talk. You need to thank your employer for the counseling session. Do you know why? Because if they are not giving you a counseling session and you've done something wrong, or you've potentially violated policy, or you made a mistake, what's the alternative? I can guarantee you the alternative is not to just leave it alone and let you figure it out on your own. There's too much money on the line with corporate contracts. There's too much liability. There's too much publicity. There's too much fallout from not handling a situation. And ultimately, a supervisor's job is on the line if they don't have corrective action for the subordinate. So the only other option other than a counseling session is to terminate you. And in this economy, guys, and I don't care what economy it is, none of us can do without our paycheck, right? So you need to thank your supervisor for taking the time to have this counseling session with you. Number one, you're thanking them because it's going to ultimately make you a better officer. But number two, it keeps you employed. If you're having a counseling session, consider that a warning, right? They're putting you on notice that you've done something, that there was an issue somewhere and it needs corrective action. You're thanking them for that opportunity because that means that you still have your job. Guys, listen, I can't tell you how thankful I was coming out of this counseling session. I don't want to make this situation sound bigger or worse than it was, but it just made me think about, wow, this is something that we need to talk about on the channel, because I have seen so many officers where a supervisor is trying to talk to them, trying to give them some corrective advice, trying to give them just a little bit of advice, and we get kind of stuck in our egos, and people, they don't want to hear it. Well, if you don't want to hear it, then guess what? A lot of supervisors aren't going to waste their time. It's going to cut you. You know what I mean? So very, very good. Lastly, and this is kind of a postscript, right? We all have to remain humble, and that includes me. Like, I've been putting a lot of time into this. I've been putting a lot of time into training, a lot of time into developing and trying to help train and help develop. But at the end of the day, I'm still a baby in this, guys. Here in this area, in Portland, I've only been working in security for a little over a year and a half. I've worked in other places. I've worked in other states. That's not where I am. You are where your feet are. And my feet are rooted in Portland. And Portland is different. And there's a lot of things out here that are different than anywhere else in the country. And to be naive of that puts you at a grave disadvantage, both in your job, financially, and safety-wise, right? So, yeah, you got to remain humble. Everybody has to be able to be taught, and that includes me. So that concludes my 5 tips on how to properly take counseling from your supervisor. Hope that it's helpful. And guys, I want to hear what you have to think. Drop your comments, drop your thoughts. Feel free to share this video with other officers. As always, please be careful, watch your 6, and be great. It's your boy. All right, take care.